Hi guys, welcome back to the Social Tune. And yeah, it's been a while. I feel like that might as well be a recurring phrase at this point. To put it as simply as possible, I got distracted this year. As per usual, started off with all these ambitious projects, little less ambitious than in past years. I set the bar a little lower for myself. And even then, I've had a video that I've had scripted for months now. I'm really passionate about it. I love the subject. And maybe there's a hint to it somewhere on this screen. But the point is, despite that being done for quite a while now, I still haven't actually got around to filming it because, well...
Kill Sableye? I need the hole, steady in the trunk. Put your phone down, let's get out the front.
Again, distracted. No, I do not have an ADHD diagnosis, nor do I plan on getting one because, we'll unpack my mental health some other day, but for now, we're going to talk about my favorite albums and songs of the year so far. Yes, it is a long-standing tradition on this channel, even though I skipped a couple of years here and there, and mainly that was in years where I wasn't as tuned into music, or I just didn't have as much to say. But this year, no, I've definitely kept up, even if I haven't been as vocal, unless you are someone who follows my community posts, and you are so valid, by the way. But today, I thought this would be a good exercise to just get on camera again and edit something completely unscripted and kind of unprompted. And so, for those of you who only clicked on this video to hear about individual songs and couldn't give a shit about albums, here are a bunch of songs, one per artist, that I have loved in 2026. Keep in mind that some of these are standalone singles, while others are songs that might be connected to projects that would end up on an expanded year-end list, but aren't currently in my top 10. And with that being said...
The harbingers of fury must be seriously dense, being Republicans and Dems.
Back from the future with some bad news. Everything you ever loved is covered in a black room.
Roll the windows and shoot out the drones. We took the sadness right from Saturday night. Now only black people can see me.
It's just love is a game that we don't want to play anymore, 'cause we're losing. What is the truth? I've been so...
Left side to the right side. Front side to the back. Stampede if you with me. We ain't tryna hear that.
Nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's coming to save you.
I'm waking up to a dream sequence. Sometimes I can't see me in it.
Olympic medals, food that you eat, the music you hear, the films that you see. Why the fuck should we go? Why the fuck should we go back? Why the fuck should we go?
But I know I'm never leaving. I'm only dreaming, and I can't make a sound.
I think we might be sleeping. I think we might be walking to the death of love. It never seemed so hard.
I said they all gonna respect the mulatto.
I got something I wanna tell you. Dreams can come true.
I could get used to this. Tonight will satisfy my every motive.
Stop, watch me roll, roll. Stop, watch me roll, roll. Stop, watch me roll, roll. Stop.
Push the pipe, push the pipe.
They'll ride off in their rockets, and they'll raise the price of hope. Meanwhile, you and I are sinking in the same boat.
Everything that we say and we do gets hurt. And they put a strain on our love that we didn't deserve. Next time, I'm keeping it private.
What's the mystery? Yeah, I'm blowing up, I got inflammation, need antihistamine. Life and death isn't foreign to me, got family history.
It be feels so good to say that I just can't get over losing you. I'm lost in time, I don't care for the world outside. Oh, you can stay for the night in the palaces of my mind. Lord, don't let me make it past 50. Growing old don't seem like fun.
It's not bad enough to let my baby go. Go, go, go. Countdown to a hot mess. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's time to live my life like it's never been done. Tried to steal your love, but you give it for free. Now I'm hearing all about it from your menagerie. You're a real girl's girl, a girl's girl.
Change your zip code. Turns out that you're still an asshole.
And it's good for me, I'm sure, but it don't matter how your love feels anymore. It will never be the cure.
I don't wanna talk down ever. I don't wanna be a heartbreaker. I just know it can be better, be better, be better.
I'm looking right into a crystal ball. When I fall in love, it's really fuzzy. Oh, I wish I wasn't Mr. Know-it-all.
But who she was is dancing in the shadows. She's right there when she plays the piano.
Why should we run away from what we can't control? A generation lost its future to funds without a soul.
And now that that's out of the way, here are the top 10 best albums of 2026 so far. Starting with... I don't actually have any transition music or any sort of in-between card, transition card. Oh boy, unscripted is going great. So number 10 is Even the Devil Smiles, or ETDS, a mixtape by IDK. Yes, that is the full title. You ever have one of those artists that you've been listening to for years on and off, but they've never really released a full project that worked for you in its entirety? Yeah, this is where IDK really stepped up his game. I've liked past projects and individual songs for years now, but this was the first one where start to finish, there were no skips, the features are incredible, the production is just immaculate. And frankly, the only reason that it's this low on the list is because I haven't really gone back to it as much since it first came out near the beginning of the year. Not a problem with him, it's just been such an easy listen, and this year I've just had a hip-hop project or two that required me to sit and think, and I'm a little bit of a sucker for that, as we all know. But definitely a worthy entry. If you have not checked it out, please do. At number 9, we actually have a very underrated country album, and that is Here I Am by Ward Davis. Ward Davis is one of those guys that every single project he releases is just incredible. He genuinely seems incapable of making music that isn't somewhat fantastic, especially when he's known for incredible, timeless songwriting on songs like Day One, which have made my top 50 songs of previous years. But this is a wonderful culmination of all of his talents. Incredible hooks, phenomenal, gorgeous production, and songwriting that, even when he is treading into lighter material, still manages to feel so timeless. He has one of those voices that feels like it's been around for decades, so it's kind of shocking he's actually only really been active since around 2015, I believe, and in my opinion really only found his footing with 2020's Black Cats and Crows. But yeah, if you're in the mood for incredible rustic, raw, often swaggering country music, where he dives into a lot of his own demons, especially when it comes to alcohol, but also has a couple of songs where he's just looking for a fight and it's kind of awesome, I would definitely recommend this, with so many barn burners and one or two songs like Stray Dogs and Alley Cats that really do sound timeless, that it's really worth a listen if you are into this genre. With that, let's go to number 8, which is actually my favorite hip-hop album of the year so far, Fight Naked by B. Dolan. If I had made this video a few months ago, this would have been probably in my top 3, which I know is kind of how these lists work. The more albums come out, the more material you find. But my point is more that I've kind of fallen off this album a little bit. But I still admire it so much that I definitely think I'm going to start going back to it now that the summer's kicked in, and especially going into autumn. Because it's a very pensive, introspective album, kind of reminding me of Jason Isbell's Weather Vanes, in that it is a deconstruction of masculinity and what it means to be a man, but seen through various different lenses, including how corporations will use you and pretend to give your life meaning when really they're just sucking you dry for all you're worth, or more funny songs like the title track that's all swaggering macho bravado that's well aware of how ridiculous it is. And if all that weren't enough, you have more introspective moments, like when he muses on the fact that he is slowly approaching the age that his dad was when he died, and fearing that the same thing might happen to him. Keep in mind, his last album was all about his near-death experience. So yeah, it's absolutely phenomenal, a really layered project that really had me musing over it for about 2 weeks. It's actually all I listened to. This is not a joke. If you look at my top 5 tracks from this year so far, according to Spotify, 4 of them are from this project. But as of this moment, there's just 1 or 2 albums that resonate a little more strongly with me, but expect that to change as the year goes on. By the time we reach the end of this year, there's a good chance this is my favorite project he's ever put out. And then at number 7, we have an album that I know a lot of you haven't heard, Notes from Inside by Adeem the Artist. I reviewed this somewhat recently on my community tab, so if you want my full thoughts, definitely go check that out. But suffice to say, this is some of the most raw, confessional songwriting that I've heard all year. It gets uncomfortably honest at certain points, and trigger warning, there are certain themes about suicide and tokenization and feeling like you're being put into a box and putting on a face that isn't really yours, all of which ends up being for nothing because you then lose it all anyway. It's an album that gets occasionally really dark and is offset by the fact that Adeem the Artist is just naturally so fucking hilarious that they manage to inject humor into this even when there's not really a brave face they can put on. Once again, it's unfortunate that a lot of you haven't heard this because currently the entire album is really only available for digital download, and ideally I would ask you to pay for it if you're going to listen to it. They are an independent artist that is clearly struggling a little. And I don't mean that as a diss, Adeem. If somehow you're watching this project has meant so much to me this year. So if you do find the time to buy this, invest some money and emotion into it, believe me, this will be one of the most rewarding listens of your year. Please just do that. At number 5, and I know I'm going to get some comments about this, it is the best album that a former member of One Direction has released this year. It is Dinner Party by Niall Horan. Look, I am a sucker for Niall. I've been saying it for years now. I find him endlessly charming. I think his voice and his songwriting have matured so much, even since his debut, which I love. And ever since he's gone off on his own, he's only really had one somewhat of a dud album. His first 2 are fantastic, and then The Show was really a huge letdown. But you know what? I kept the faith, and it paid off here. Yes, I will admit I'm a bit of a fanboy, because objectively, a few of the albums before this are probably better, and yet this is probably going to become one of my most played albums of this year, and I can't honestly place it any lower than this in good faith. Unlike a lot of the other projects so far, this album just seems to ooze a lot of joy and contentment, where even the sadder songs have this emotional maturity to them, realizing that even though it still hurts, he has worked through the pain. He is now in a position where he's done enough work on himself to acknowledge where he was in the wrong in those situations. Very similar to Heartbreak Weather, in fact, and yet it also touches on some darker themes than that album did. Where a lot of that album felt like it was about first loves and first heartbreaks, this feels like it's a few years down the line, because it is. That, and I think the sonic palette is just fucking gorgeous. The reverb, the hazy guitars, the multi-tracking is just stunning, with hook after hook after hook that just shows that Niall is still maturing as a songwriter and a composer. Yeah, if it wasn't clear, I'm fucking in love with this album. Niall continues to be my boy crush when it comes to this type of music, and it's just a shame that I'm never gonna fucking get to see him live, at least not in Ireland. The price of tickets in his home country are just ridiculous, and they sell out so quickly. But I'll still appreciate you from afar, buddy, and highly recommend this album to anyone who will give me a chance. At number 4, we have the... 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's number 6. At number... Wait a minute. That was number 6. Niall was number 6. Take a note. Maybe I said number 6. I don't know. At number 5, we have the latest release on this list, and that is the new Jesse Wells album, Masks Off. Now, full disclosure, I've only actually heard this album maybe 3 times at time of recording, but having listened to it even those 2 or 3 times, this is one of the best albums of this year, hands down. For those few people that were understandably a little annoyed that his last big album, Middle, last year was, well, a little bit too fence-sitting, which, as much as I do love that album, is a legitimate criticism of it, this is where the left-leaning politics take over in full swing. Yes, there are still a couple of moments that I want to dive into in more detail because they might still be considered a little too forgiving of the right, but then you have the first 4 tracks, including the title track, or the next to last track, Join Ice, all of which are calling out the current American system and its corruption and the historical ties that have led into this now, with many beautiful lyrical parallels that continue to show off that Jesse Wells is one of the most compelling voices and one of the best songwriters of our time. And this album kind of delivered on everything I wanted it to. Once again, I need a bit more time to sit with it, but as of right now, having only given it a few listens, this is genuinely the lowest that I could place it in good conscience. I fucking adore it. It makes me laugh. It makes me think. It makes me really question some of the people that are not paying attention to this or giving it the bad faith reviews. Because in my opinion, in 2026, this is an album that everyone needs to hear, no matter what your political affiliation may be. God, I'm sweaty. At number 4, we have the new Valencia Grace album, Slut. This album screams theater kid. And if you know anything about me, that's kind of a cheat code. It's only 7 tracks long, which is genuinely the main reason it's not higher on this list. I just want more of it. But it somehow blends techno with pop with opera, and yet it kind of works. It feels like a fan-made musical that you just find on YouTube one day, which, as far as I can tell, it also kind of is, or at least that's how it may have started out. But with more and more eyes on her, with more and more attention and therefore budget behind her, Valencia Grace really did deliver a star-making project. The kind of album that explores bi-curiosity and gender fluidity and stands for trans rights, that kind of makes her the spiritual succession to Lady Gaga that a lot of people have already drawn a parallel to. If any of that sounds like it's interesting to you, or if you're a fan of Chapel Rowan, but if she was a little bit kookier circa early Gaga, then I cannot recommend this highly enough to you. Once again, it's only 7 songs, but she does have more that have dropped since then, so hopefully it's building to a larger project down the line. But please just give me more of this. At number 3, remember when I said that B. Dolan made my favorite rap album of the year, but I kind of fell off it? Well, there was kind of a reason for that, and it's this album. It is Crybaby by Vince Staples. There were a few people asking why I didn't put Dark Times on my best albums of the year it came out, and to be honest, even though I do respect that album, I just never really went back to it much. It just didn't grip me in the same way. There wasn't an immediacy to it. And I am aware that me putting this as my first Vince Staples album to ever make a year-end list of mine, as well as the fact that it's definitely the album that is, well, directed towards people of my ethnicity. Yeah, that's definitely playing into stereotypes in a way that I'm not thrilled with, but at the same time, I do kind of love the fact that he calls me out. I do love the fact that he calls out every single one of those white fans who showed up at his show with no actual knowledge of the struggle he's been through, who see him as an entertainer, as a musician, but aren't actually willing to engage with what he stands for, where he came from, who he is as a black man in America. I also love the fact that this album doesn't allow itself to be pigeonholed. The fact that he leaned so far into the punk rock aesthetic, pulling on so many influences in that scene that clearly shows that he knows his stuff, and manages to do it in a way that is parodial, like a parody, you know what I mean, and yet doesn't feel like a joke. You need to actually know what the reference points are, or what he's making fun of, in order to get the humor behind it. Also, even though there is a lot of humor here, the album gets fucking dark, man. The amount of references he makes to giving up, or the fact that we're all doomed in the end. Acknowledging that he could very well become a cog in the system that he hates so much, and that sometimes he's tempted to just do it. And that's before you get to the songs diving into racism and how white people engage with black art, in a way that is very accusatory because, well, it fucking deserves to be. Again, if you know anything about the history of music criticism on this platform, or well before this platform, you know that it's often very whitewashed and has given praise to certain acts without giving credit to the people who influence them, who are generally black artists. Vince Staples manages to do all of that while also making an album that is just banger after banger, where you could very easily listen to this from start to finish and not hear any of the undertones or register them, which I will admit I did on first listen when I was just listening to it casually. Until one day I actually did start listening to it in my office, and then it was all I could listen to for about 2 or 3 days. Genuinely a tour de force of an album. I still don't want to call it hip-hop because it is a rock album just made by a guy more traditionally known for rap music. And as Vince's first step into independence away from his major label, I salute you, sir, because this is absolutely incredible, and in my opinion, your best work to date. At number 2, I don't actually have the vinyl with me here, but it is a vinyl that I own because I contributed to the Kickstarter. It's Appalachia by Emily Scott Robinson. Look, I saw Emily live twice last year. Both of those times, I was actually able to meet her after the show and tell her how much her music meant to me. How I rated her album Traveling Mercies as the best country album of the 2010s, at least tied with Jason Isbell's Southeastern. I got to see what a sweet and genuine person she is, and really, if you ever meet her, it does kind of melt your heart a bit. Not only was seeing her live in concert a dream come true, it made me cry really, really hard, and I really do love that she and her manager have leaned into that and actually started making t-shirts that say, Emily Scott Robinson made me cry, or, wait a minute. There, you see? So yeah, much like Niall Horan, very biased, but it doesn't hurt that our album also came out in January of 2026. I mean, the opening song to this is called Hymn for the Unholy, and really does seem to set the tone for the year as it currently stands. This gathered moment of community where we all look at just how fucked we are, and yet trying to find a moment of peace and solidarity within the chaos. Not to mention songs like Dirtbag Saloon, which you could very much tie a parallel to how a lot of queer and trans-friendly businesses have had to shut down this year due to hostility, all being shut down by big tech tycoons, very similar to the way that these dive bars or the saloons are being shut down when all the weirdos are being kicked to the curb. There's a lot of very, very relevant parallels, is what I'm saying. And then you get to the songs that really do make you cry, like the tribute to her grandmother who is slowly dying and has dementia, or the incredibly sweet and timeless songs like Bless It All that is just about having a grateful smile for what you do have, or The Time for Flowers and that things will have to get better one day. It's just such a warm hug of an album. And while some people are definitely going to say it's not as ambitious as American Siren, yeah, it's not. It's supposed to be a more homespun, smaller project, and yet I can tell you, as someone who had it playing while I was driving through the west coast of Ireland along Galway and Connemara, listening to this album while the sun was setting, reflecting off the water, the mountains rising to both sides, it was genuinely one of the most magical moments of my life, and I'm never going to forget it. Emily Scott Robinson is the best songwriter of our current age, I think. I don't genuinely know who could rival her in terms of pure emotion. And the fact that she is still such a small and unknown artist who's only really been featured in a few publications, it really, really is a crime. She deserves so much more. So this is not a request. I need every single one of you to go listen to and support this album now, because this is a sweet baby angel of an artist, and I wish nothing but the best for her going forwards. She just deserves the best of everything. This is the best country album of the year so far. So what could be better? At number 1, I really regret the fact that to this day, this is the album that I've highlighted this year with the shortest and most throwaway review, because I did not realize it was going to become my favorite album of the year so far. When I did that, it's You by Underscores. Wall Socket, as I'm sure you all know, is one of the most acclaimed albums in recent memory. An album that Underscores made, quote, for the guys. Whereas this was pitched, I don't think by her, but by some of her community, as for the girls. And of course, knowing me, it's no surprise that I like and respect Wall Socket, but don't really go back to it. Whereas this has been my most played album of the year, and it's not even close. The first couple of times I heard You, I actually wrote that review. I definitely should have waited, but in the moment I just thought, oh, this is very sweet, this is homespun, it's kind of catchy. I was listening to a lot of K-pop at the time, and it reminded me of that. You know, the glitchy hyper pop of it. It was very cute, it was very sweet, and you know, it was probably going to make my year-end list, maybe a little lower down. But then I kept listening to it. Then I realized that I couldn't stop listening to it, because not only is it so goddamn catchy, literally every single song here flows into the next so goddamn well, while still being very distinct from each other, but what I wasn't prepared for was the emotional narrative that would eventually sink in with me. Navigating a rocky relationship with someone that you're still trying to relate to, possibly the first queer person that Underscores ever tried to start a relationship with, at least that's how I interpret it, and feeling that rush of ecstasy, and then realizing where you clash. Because people are still people. They go from being that idealized person in your head to becoming a person who might have trouble communicating, who might have flaws that you're not really willing to engage with, whether that's their addiction to smoking or their more confrontational personality compared to yours. And so you go from the cute, uncertain flirting to sharing everything you love with them because you just want them to be part of your world, to imagining that you two will be together forever, a power couple for the ages, Hollywood forever, even though a part of you doesn't really want that, to realizing there's more friction and trying to mediate, trying to keep the peace, before the first real argument hits, where you're miscommunicating but also misinterpreting, and you feel an inherent sense of rejection that you weren't fully prepared for, to the quiet contemplation afterwards where you still can't help but focus on those feelings, loving them even if they frustrate you. And while you may then try to cope with it, try to bury yourself in the physical aspect of the relationship in order to drown out the voices that are telling you this is a bad idea, ultimately, it doesn't work out, and you drift apart. It's such a clear narrative from start to finish, and the beautiful thing about it is that the album is cyclical, as a new relationship can start off after the previous one crashes and burns. And at the end of it, once you absorb all of that, once you dig into all the little nuances, the more I listened to it, the more the emotional resonance was just amplified. Weirdly, this does kind of remind me of Brat, where the album is so diverse sonically, and yet still feels very cohesive and can be listened to from start to finish with no skips. But the narrative is stronger with You. Hell, just the fact that it's called You, because, at least my interpretation, it is, one, focused on you, the person who is the subject of this album, and two, the fact that You is very clearly the word that is said the most across this entire album. It's a recurring motif. These are just little details that really appeal to someone like me, who loves the little details, loves an emotional arc, loves a concept and a narrative, but is also kind of a sucker for this particular brand of very ADHD-friendly, stimmy music. Once again, we're not going into whether or not I need a diagnosis. But yeah, the album just connects with me. It works on every level. It's the best pop album, not just of this year, but I think in recent memory. And I really do think it is being slept on by far too many people. Even the people I know who've said they like this, they don't tend to say that it's better than Wall Socket, and in my opinion, it's not even close. You by Underscores is the best album of 2026 so far. I hope you enjoyed this. I am a sweaty fucking mess. And until the next time, I'm Finn, and this is The Social Tunes, signing off.